Ma'am, are you really married? E- Excuse me? What do you mean? I had hired a private investigator for a certain investigation. From the report of that investigator, I heard an unexpected fact that left me unable to hide my shock. If my husband has been exploiting my frequent night shifts to have a sweet affair, I will never forgive him. My name is Rachel. I am a nurse at a general hospital and a working wife who was about to celebrate her first Christmas since getting married. My husband Daniel, whom I married half a year ago, is a very gentle man who is 5 years older than me. We met at a social gathering, and we hit it off because we had the same last name. We got married as we entered our 4th year of dating. Daniel's parents had already passed away, and he said he had no relatives, so we ended with a photo wedding instead of having a wedding ceremony. Daniel is an area manager of a retail store. He basically works at a branch, but he also goes on business trips to the head office and visits various stores. I don't have any children yet, and I thought I should earn money when I can, so I mainly take night shifts. Thanks to that, I can relax on my days off after night shift, and I think I have more days off than other jobs because a night shift counts as 2 days of work. Daniel's job did not have fixed days off, so he often adjusted to match my days off. We enjoyed our newlywed life by going on many trips and dates. One day when I came home from a night shift, Daniel, who should have already gone to work, was at home. "I'm home." "Huh? Daniel? You're not off today, are you?" When I asked with curiosity, Daniel opened his mouth with great difficulty and said, well, you see, I have a sudden business trip from tomorrow, and it might be a bit long, so they suddenly gave me the day off today." "I see. How long will you be gone?" "About a week, I think. It might be longer, but I won't know until I get there." "All right, work hard." I was saddened by the sudden and lengthy business trip. I had a rare consecutive holiday the day after tomorrow, and I was looking forward to spending a slow evening with Daniel. But if it's for work, I had no choice but to switch gears, and I decided to drive Daniel to the airport. It takes about 2 hours by car to the airport, and it takes about 2 hours by plane to the head office in New York. After seeing off Daniel at the airport, I strolled around the airport, which I rarely visit, had lunch at a famous nearby cafe, and returned home. Exhausted, I sprawled out on the sofa, where I spotted an unfamiliar envelope tucked under the TV stand. It must have been something that Daniel, who was supposed to be on a business trip to the head office, had left behind. Feeling a little guilty, I checked inside. Inside was an album filled with pictures of Daniel, an unknown woman, and a little girl, maybe around 5 years old, in front of a kindergarten classroom, dressed in a school uniform. What on earth is this? My mind went blank. Could it be an affair? And with a single mother? Unforgivable. Infidelity. The word floated into my mind, and before I knew it, I found myself calling Daniel's office. I mentioned that I knew Daniel, made up a reason, and asked if he was on his trip. To my shock, they told me that Daniel was on bereavement leave. What's more, I was informed that there were hardly any business trips from their branch to the head office. What was going on? Daniel had told me he was away on business, but he was on bereavement leave? I hadn't heard anything about it. He was lying to get time off work, just to meet with the woman and child in these photos. That was the only conclusion I could come to. I started looking for a detective agency. I decided on one, planning to visit the next day. But all the while, I couldn't shake the realization that in the 4 years we'd been dating, Daniel had been lying to me about these non-existent business trips. A profound emptiness washed over me. Perhaps I was exhausted, because at some point, I fell asleep. When I woke up, it was already 6 a.m. the next day. I had an appointment at the detective agency at 10 a.m., so I got ready, carefully placing the envelope I'd found yesterday in a larger bag so it wouldn't fold. At the agreed upon time, I walked through the gates of a detective agency for the first time in my life. The words I had prepared to say flew out of my head the moment I opened the door to the office. The detective waiting for me was a young man who looked to be in his mid-20s and was dressed like a college student. Reading my surprise, he asked with a casual smile, "You think I'm an immature-looking detective, don't you?" and managed to lighten the mood. "Oh no, I'm sorry, it's just... This is my first time at a place like this. I'm a bit nervous." I responded on impulse, but he kindly urged me to sit on the sofa. After a small talk with the detective, I took out the album that had led me to suspect Daniel of infidelity. True to form, the detective started collecting necessary evidence, deftly making copies. He picked up a copy of the picture of the three in front of the school and told me, "This is likely to be a significant clue." The name of the school was clearly visible in the photo. Immediately, the detective searched for the preschool online and made a call. He made the call in a separate room, so I had no idea how he extracted the information, but apparently, the little girl in the photo was a student at that preschool. And unsurprisingly, that child was currently on a leave of absence from the school. The school was located in New York, so I was told it would be an expensive job, but I agreed. Actually, I had been studying and investing in stocks and Forex since adulthood. After becoming a working adult, I started investing with my monthly salary, and I've had some decent returns, so I decided to use that money for the investigation. We'd need to fly to New York, and it was unclear how many days it would take to get evidence, but the biggest humiliation for me was being lied to by my husband. I wanted to grab proof at any cost. That determination drove me. The detective seemed to assume that once Daniel returned here, the little girl would also return to preschool. The next day, I went to work as usual. Of course, I put back the envelope and its contents exactly where they were. Then I got a message from Daniel, who was supposed to be away for a week, saying, "Sorry, my business trip is going to be extended by 3 more days. I'll be back on Sunday." As arranged, I contacted the detective the day Daniel returned home. The detective understood and seemed pumped to start the investigation. The next day, he flew to New York and began his preliminary investigation. That evening, I received a call from the detective revealing an unbelievable fact. During the preliminary investigation, an unexpected situation came to light. What do you mean? I was totally confused. I'll be back tomorrow. Can we meet soon? Yes, anytime. Responding like that, I promptly headed to the detective's office after finishing my night shift the next day. So, was he cheating after all? To my question, the detective seemed to struggle to give an answer. No, I think this situation might be even more serious, the detective said, with a grave look on his face, which made me swallow my words. Firstly, it's likely true that your husband has taken a leave of absence for bereavement from his company. However, Mrs., are you sure you're really married to Daniel? What? What are you implying? We officially registered our marriage 6 months ago. In fact, I followed Daniel and your daughter back from her kindergarten in New York and found their home. According to the locals, Daniel has been living alone here for the past 4 years, only returning to New York a few times a year. I heard he stayed for about a week for his father-in-law's funeral in New York. No way. I was at a loss for words. Since you and Daniel originally had the same last name, it's hard to say anything at this stage, but I would suggest you check at the city hall. The detective advised. After expressing my thanks, I made my way straight to the city hall. At the city hall, I obtained a copy of the residency certificate for my entire household. What was written on it, however, was only my name. No way! There must be some mistake. I got married 6 months ago. I appealed loudly to the female City Hall staff member who was helping me in my confusion. The staff member, seeming distressed, said, "Even if you say so, we couldn't find any record of your marriage." But I insisted, pleading with her. "Please, check it again. My husband's name is Daniel. Please." To my near tears, the staff member repeatedly apologized with genuine remorse. In the midst of my confusion, I recalled the day I had submitted our marriage registration. Despite it being a workday for me, Daniel insisted that it had to be done on that auspicious day, and I had to go alone to the city hall to submit our marriage registration. I never would have imagined that our marriage registration was not submitted. After letting my tears flow, my emotions gradually settled down. I apologized and bowed my head, then left the city hall. All I could think about on my way home from my night shift was how tiring everything had been lately. I fell asleep on the sofa, pondering what to do next. When I woke up, Daniel was in the middle of preparing dinner. Seeing him like this reminded me of the woman and the girl in the photo. I was furious about being deceived, but I realized that if I lost my cool now, I wouldn't be able to take any action. So I was able to suppress my emotions. From that day on, I put on a smile in front of Daniel. About a week after going to the city hall, I had been considering whether I could find out anything about his real wife from Daniel's phone or his surroundings. Daniel tends to be quite forgetful, and it seemed that he accidentally left his house without his smartphone that day. I happened to be off, so I considered delivering it to him. But first, I decided to check his phone. Normally, it's not cool to snoop on someone else's phone, but I couldn't afford such decorum at the time. Considering the state of my mental health, I felt I had no choice. Daniel occasionally unlocks his phone while voicing the passcode, so unlocking it was easy. From there, I found the contact of a woman with a girl's picture he always talked about as an icon. I immediately called this woman. Around the third ring, a calm and elegant woman's voice answered. "Hello? Who is this?" When I asked, "Are you Mrs. Daniel Smith?" the woman's tone turned puzzled. "Yes, I am. But who are you?" "I'm someone Daniel met at his outstation. It's hard for me to say this, but we are living together now. So there really is a woman at his outstation." "I see. I was planning to visit my husband who lives there during the end of the year holidays. Can we talk then?" I didn't expect this turn of events. I gladly accepted such a generous offer. Around that time, Daniel said, "Sorry, but there's a reunion in my hometown this New Year's, so I'm going to go back home." I had been waiting for these words from Daniel. Of course, I immediately agreed. According to what his wife told me, Daniel's hometown is the next town over. I heard both his parents had passed away, and he had no relatives. But it turns out, both parents are alive and well, and still living in the next town. There's only 1 month left until the end of the year. I decided to find a lawyer who specializes in relationships and planned to thoroughly punish Daniel. Until the day of the showdown, I acted as usual with Daniel, but emotionally, it was unbearable. And finally, 1 month later, the day of the showdown arrived. I told Daniel I had a night shift starting the night of the 30th and left the house with a smile, saying, "Take care, and Happy New Year!" Of course, I explained the situation at work, and got a vacation from December 30th to January 2nd. I stayed at a business hotel on the 30th, and on the morning of the 31st, I went to the meeting place with Daniel's wife, and saw an elegant woman, just like in the photos. Her name is Mary, and she married Daniel 6 years ago, and they have a 5-year-old daughter. After briefly discussing each other, Mary and I began executing the plan. Mary came all the way from New York by plane, with her parents and her daughter. Since this isn't a story to tell a young child, she left her daughter with her mother, in the hotel room. Together with Mary's father, we were heading to Daniel's family home. It seemed that Mary had spoken to Daniel's parents beforehand, though I was surprised when they bowed deeply to me as soon as they saw me. Then, on the evening of the 31st, as planned, Daniel opened the door to his parents' living room. "I'm home!" "Welcome back!" The woman who welcomed Daniel with a smile was not Daniel's parents, nor Mary, but me. Seeing me, Daniel went pale. "Why are you here?" I faced the surprised Daniel and replied with a calm smile. "What's this? Weren't you married to me?" "No, this is—" Daniel couldn't move, pale as a ghost. There stood Mary, Mary's father, and Daniel's parents, all present. They all glared at Daniel with stern faces. Mary spoke up quietly. "What's the meaning of this, Daniel? We just had a baby and needed help from our parents. So I asked you to work away from home. But behind our back, you've been having an affair and leading a double life." Mary spoke so matter-of-factly that for a moment, I felt a chill run down my spine. "I'm just glad we're on the same side now." I began to berate him as well. "Daniel, every time you said you were going on a business trip, it seems you were meeting with your family. You were married. Why did you approach me? Did you think you could deceive me? This is marriage fraud. You're scum. And when I asked your company about your business trips, they said you hardly ever go on them. What are you thinking with such a beautiful wife and adorable daughter at home?" I was such a fool to believe your lies. Confronted by both of us, Daniel sighed, then burst into laughter. "I wonder how I was found out. Living a double life was fun, especially with Rachel working well. It was easy to deceive you because we have the same last name, and you mostly work nights, so I could do whatever I wanted." Upon hearing those words, Daniel's mother, who had no recollection of raising such a son, gave him a punch in the face. I looked up at Daniel and said, "That's right. Besides me, you had 3 other lovers, didn't you?" As I thrust the incriminating photos at him. Startled, Daniel sputtered. "What is this? Are you stalking me? I'll sue you." These are all the pieces of evidence gathered by a private investigator I hired because I thought you were having an affair. We're going to make you pay damages to both Mary and me. As I said this with a firm tone, Daniel suddenly collapsed to the floor, begging for mercy. "I'm sorry. Just spare me the damages. I'll continue my relationship with both of you. Just spare me the damages." He cried out. I was speechless with disbelief, but it seemed that he was broke from spending too much on his other lovers. I couldn't care less. I left Daniel's childhood home with the words, "I don't even want to speak to you anymore. Let's deal with the rest through our lawyers." After that, I went through my lawyer to file a claim for compensation on the grounds of bigamy. I was grateful to my lawyer when the money was successfully recovered. I felt guilty towards Mary and tried to give her some of the compensation, but she refused. In fact, she was grateful for all the evidence I provided, and we became friends. According to Mary, she collected compensation from Daniel's other girlfriend and broke up with him. Of course, she made sure to get her fair share of alimony and child support. Apparently, one of his mistresses was a colleague of his, and Daniel was demoted at work and sent to a subsidiary company. At the new company, he's apparently being bossed around by a younger employee and cries every day. However, he can't quit his job because he needs the money to pay off the compensation. On the other hand, I moved out of the house I had been living in and rented a place that's just right for living alone, and I'm leading a carefree life. I now visit New York a few times a year and continue to be friends with Mary and her daughter.